While the president looks ahead to 2024, the scene from his rearview mirror is not looking good at all. The Associated Press reports from one July 4th to the next, a steep slide for Biden. The AP attributes his dismal approval rating falling some 20 points from last year to a host of things, including his chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan, sky-high gas prices, and soaring inflation. And his numbers are looking even worse when it comes to a second term. A new poll, check this out, finds that more than 70% of Americans, this is not Republicans, don't want the president to run for re-election. Tommy, it's a startling number. And when you look at that AP headline and dig in, they say that sunny speech that he gave 1 year ago, where he tried to say we have freedom from the pandemic, marked a crossroads for Biden. The pandemic appeared to be waning. The economy was booming. Inflation was negligible. Public approval for his job performance was glowing. A lot has happened in 1 year.
Well, then he also gloated about the price of hot dogs, which he's no longer able to do. That 14 cents,
yes.
Can't even brag about hot dogs at this point. Listen, I think the Democrats are going to wait and see how November goes. And when they get walloped, when they get shellacked, they're going to abandon Joe Biden. I think that's been the plan from the get-go. They're going to use him as a scapegoat, not their policies, but Joe Biden himself, even though it is their policies. Yep. He is merely a puppet and a shadow president for the far left agenda. But that's not what they're going to make the American people think. They're going to make the American people think it's just Joe and Kamala that are the problem. They will throw him under the bus. They will dispose of him as they always plan to do. Now, the only question is, who are they going to prop up to put in his place? I think initially they wanted it to be Kamala. They've learned that that's not going to be an option either. It's certainly not going to be Nancy. It's not going to be Hillary. I think it's going to be Gavin Newsom. I think that's who they're eyeing. It's not Stacey Abrams either. I think it's going to be Gavin, but they are going to throw Joe Biden away like yesterday's trash. He's not going to run again, and the Democrats are going to make sure of that because he's always been disposable to them.
Always. And now it appears cackling Kamala is disposable. Watch this, Joey.
What we need to do domestically, what we need to do to bring down the cost of gas. Well, right? Right?
I seen a meme the other day that said me Googling online how to make gas at home. Okay?
Oh, don't do that. Don't do that. Please don't do that.
Hilarious.
As Tammy said, it's all a joke, Joey. It seems
I almost feel sorry for that woman. She reminds me of like people that do POW videos that like they're batting with their eyes, help, help, help. I feel like there must be a mutiny within her office where they just choose not to prepare her. I don't know what else it is. I remember the Senator Kamala Harris sitting on the dais, lighting into Supreme Court nominations, lighting into whomever the Republicans had in front of them. She was very good at that. She was in this kind of attack mode, which is sometimes what their vice president can be. And with someone like Joe Biden, that's kind of what you would want. Like coming into this, wouldn't you want Uncle Joe to be the one to be like, all right, kumbaya, let's all be together here, and then have this younger VP that is known for being fiery come out and attack, and that is not what's happening whatsoever. She looks unprepared and uncomfortable at all times. Now, maybe that's her own fault. I don't know. I don't work in the White House, and I don't know everything that happens in one. I sit on the outside and pontificate about what's happening in that building. The couple of times I've been there have been for pomp and circumstance. So I don't know what makes Kamala look so unprepared and so uncomfortable, but just looking at who they are as individuals, Kamala and Joe, I don't understand why the dynamic isn't much different to work as a team.
Well, Joey Jones, Joe Scarborough has the answer for you about why he did. This is what he said, Dr. Sapphire. I mean, this is unbelievable. He said, media bias alert, Kamala Harris hasn't had a positive profile in a year. DeSantis sneezes and he's framed as the rising star of politics, and yet the great white hope still loses in every head-to-head matchup with Harris. That's not the case. DeSantis has been painted as a monster by the media, even though he's doing a phenomenal job.
Kelly, the reason that there hasn't been any positive media profiles on Kamala Harris because she actually hasn't done anything positive for the country. And the reason that people don't want Joe Biden to go up for a second term is because they don't think he's going to make it through that second term, which would make Kamala Harris the president. And she has functioned as an empty placeholder this entire time. She's not brought forth one positive thing. I mean, look what she's done as the border czar. And talk about Ron DeSantis. When you look at Florida, you look at how he handled COVID, from increasing access for the vaccines to seniors, widening how they can access it, keeping businesses open, keeping children back in school. What did Kamala do during COVID? Absolutely nothing. When she's asked even about how should we handle COVID, she does her normal, word salad of, well, we're just going to keep doing, and, we're going to do right now what we have done, and, that's what's working. We're going to just, that's what's happening. So no, people don't want Joe Biden. People don't want Kamala Harris. Could it be Buttigieg? I don't know. He's like that cousin that you have to invite to every wedding, but you put him like in the back corner because he's nice enough. But is he going to be the leader of the free world? Come on.
You teed it up perfectly. Last November, Tammy, in Politico, they were saying the West Wing was whispering a buzz with Pete Buttigieg, and Gene Sperling went out and said on camera at the White House, he's the star of the cabinet. Right. It feels that way.
What does that tell you about the cabinet, right?
Yes.
The guy who is overseeing the collapse of the supply chain, the Armageddon that's going on right now. Yeah. It's a follies in a way. I mean, it's a remarkable abandonment of responsibility. First, remember, they were thinking about him to be ambassador to China. And people were like, why? And then it became the Department of Transportation, another big why. And, some of these jobs require some kind of specific knowledge, but they all require a commitment to the country, not to just yourself. These are not just setting up the backbench, the lineup for the next presidency, but it tells you how weak the backbench for the Democratic Party is, that they have to make up these things. It's like the Monkees, right? The band that was made up for television. Some of them had some musical ability, but really they were just TV stars. But ultimately, you know what the American people are responding to? This came, of course, right after President Trump. The demonization of Trump, putting Biden and all of this entire crew is like, we're back, where America's going to be actually great again, and we're going to fix it all. And all of that was a lie. And that's why these numbers have gone down so dramatically, because it's been so obvious that we've all been held as schmucks through this process. Americans don't like that.
I think you're right. And Martha McCallum pressed Gene Sperling, what has Pete done? And they said the infrastructure bill. So it's like, the infrastructure bill. Yay, he should be president. Coming up.